If you're looking for a bounce back team in 2022, the Troy Trojans should be near the top. After a 5-7 year that was fairly disappointing and now entering a new era with a new coach, this is a team with a ton of talent that should be competitive, and a bowl game should be the goal. I think last year the offense was still trying to figure things out. They return a lot of talent on that side of the ball, and the defense is absolutely stacked at every single level. I think this is a team that can bounce back and have a good year in 2022. At number one, if you don't know Carlton Marshall, you really need to expand your horizons in college football. Carlton Marshall is an undersized linebacker at under 5'9". I don't know what he officially is at. He's probably 5'8". But this kid has a tenacity to him. He is ferocious. He is one of the hardest hitters in college football. And you're looking at a kid who is not afraid to lay the wood on anybody, regardless of what size the ball carrier is. This kid knows how to get to the ball. He knows how to make plays. And when you're looking for a leader of a defense that is a high flying defense that flies around to the football, they make a ton of hard hits, they do not fear anything. This is the kind of leader that you want on your team. A guy who's going to lead you in the trenches and can get out in space and will not quit until the ball carrier is on the ground. I think he's a great leader. I think that he leads by example. He plays extremely hard, and despite the fact that he is undersized, this is a guy who deserves All-American attention. Number two, an all Sun Belt selection in Austin Stidham, the offensive tackle, is the stability, the stable body of the offensive line. And I think if you're going to look at a team that is trying to improve even more offensively, having a tackle like Stidham is a good start, especially when you're bringing in a couple new faces to block up front. Like I said, this defense is stacked. Javon Solomon is another incredible talent to join the first level. Carlton Marshall has the second level. Really, you could just put him by himself and they'd be just fine. Javon Solomon is extremely productive on the defensive side of the ball and especially at defensive end. You look at what he was capable of doing last year, and you'll see that this is a defense full of productive playmakers, guys that can make plays. And Javon Solomon is an example of that. So Marshall had 126 tackles. Solomon's a little bit off of that at 50. However, he did lead the team with 17 tackles for loss, and he had 11 sacks. A guy that teams are going to have to chip, going to have to double team, and that opens things up for guys that are next to him or on the opposite side of him, which we'll talk about here in just a sec. One of those guys is Will Cholo Jr., 7 tackles for loss and 3.5 sacks last year. He is a beast inside. Again, if you haven't watched Troy, you'll be thoroughly entertained. This is, like I said, this is a defense that is just going to get after it. If you are not prepared to block them, if you are not prepared to come at the level that they will play with, if you're not ready, simply put, you are going to be in for a long night. You're going to be in for a long game because they do not care if you are ready or not. They are going to hit you in the mouth. They're going to fly around to the football, and they're going to tackle the ball carrier with as much as power as they can. And like I said, they do not care if you are ready or if you are not. Number 5, Richard Schumoner. You're looking at 2 interceptions for defensive end last year. Again, when you have someone like Javon Solomon on the opposite side, that leaves things for guys like him to really elevate. He had 9 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. I think a requirement to play on this defense is you need to make plays in the backfield. Doesn't matter what level you're on. We're going to see some of these defensive backs that are more than capable of making plays in the backfield. And you look at this defensive line, arguably one of the best units in college football. Definitely, you can make an argument this is the best defensive line, really maybe the best defense in the group of 5 for sure. A group that, like I said, they're going to keep this team in games because they are going to get to the football. They're going to keep teams off the scoreboard, and they are going to really test other teams' wills to win the game. Safety Del Pettis was in the transfer portal at one point this offseason, but decided to come back. And when you look at I kind of had an off year last year, but when you look at what he did in 2020 with 58 tackles, 5 interceptions, I think that he is a perfect fit for the back end of the defense. He is fits the theme of hard hitting. He's a hard hitting safety, not afraid to let a guy know that he is there, make his presence felt, and that's something you really like to see in terms of your safety. A guy who's not afraid to get dirty, not afraid to help out the first two levels, and that's exactly what you need on the back end to kind of shore up the defense that is really trying to set the tone on all three levels. Flipping back to offense, we've been talking about defense quite a bit, but Kimani Vidal, 701 yards last year and 5 touchdowns, and did a little bit in the passing game too. 22 catches, 134 yards. He is one of those players that is going to make an impact on this team, and really, like I said, it's the offense that's going to determine how good this team is this year. Because, like I said, they were kind of figuring things out last year. They were trying to figure out who they were, what their identity was, trying to identify new playmakers. Vidal is one of those guys that's going to step up. And I think that he is someone you want to pay attention to on the group of five level, has explosive potential, and really just a productive guy who, if anything, if you need a play, you can get him the football. Number 8, Tez Johnson at wide receiver. 67 catches last year for 735 yards, averaged 11 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns. If the passing game takes off, I think that Vidal is going to have a bigger year, but guys like Johnson really determine how big of a year he has, because if the passing game is better than it was last year, that means that there's more running lanes to hit, there are more places for the running game to stretch the defense, and really the passing attack, if the quarterback play is up to par, and if the wide receivers are getting open, this is a team that can compete for the Sun Belt Championship, and I think one that you're going to want to watch if you're looking for something different to watch this year. Flipping back to the defense, linebacker KJ Robertson, again, with Marshall kind of taking all of the spotlight away from most of these guys, it's kind of hard to look at the linebacker group and see anybody else. But Robertson is a good second option. He is another fitting in the theme. It's honestly, if you aren't a high flying player, if you are not willing to hit the ball carrier with your absolute might, you don't belong on this team. And I think that because they're an underdog, they play with a chip on their shoulder, and guys like Robertson kind of embody that as well. 65 tackles for him last year, 4 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions. Again, teams are going to figure out where number 2 is, Carlton Marshall, and that leaves room for guys like KJ Robertson to make plays. Because if you have to double team, honestly, if you have to double team a 5'8" guy, then that says a lot about how good he is. But guys like Robertson are going to benefit because guys like Marshall are so good. And then finally, the nickelback TJ Harris. I really like his game. He just does a little bit of everything for the Troy Trojans defense. You're looking at 57 tackles last year, 7 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. And that tells you that he's just comfortable along the line of scrimmage. He's comfortable being with all the 300-pounders. He has no fear. He's more than capable of making plays in the backfield, and that's just another asset for this defense. Another a great player for the Troy defense. And like I said, this defense is going to be elite. This defense is going to be fun. And when it comes down to it, it's really just about what the offense can do, and the defense will basically take care of the rest.